Hey y'all, it's
Damn. Cut.
Hey Origin fam, and welcome to Origin Stories. It's your girl, Grant Wallace, your host for today, and I have the pleasure of interviewing the creators of Origin, Moyo, Brittney, and Dante. Hey y'all.
Hey.
Y'all gotta talk into the mic. Hey. So I think we should definitely kick this off with y'all's origin. So tell me a little bit about yourselves, where you're from, how we got here, what's Austin like for you, Moyo?
Cool. So my name is Moyo, Oyelola. Creative director, artist, Renaissance man of sorts. Born in Nigeria. In my family, we moved here to Austin in '96. And then I've been here for about, 26 years now. So it's been a journey through just, education and life and becoming an adult in a city like this. And also just stepping into my own lane creatively of the things I've been called to do, I guess, and leaning more into that. So it's been a journey, and I've been thankful, and I'm thankful to create the world I want to see in Austin. There's a lot of gaps, and I think it's beautiful when you kind of lean into filling the gaps and not run away from it. So it's always a good time when you're able to do that.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Brittney, tell us all about you. What's going on?
Yes, so my name is Brittney Williams. I'm an interior designer. I'm from Austin, Texas. Born and raised, left for a little bit to New York, came back about 5 years ago. And similar to Moyo, I think growing up in the city, it's definitely a changing city, but it's always been a narrative of mine that Austin wasn't like my space, wasn't my place. It was home. I had family. I was familiar with I-35, MoPac, Scoot-In, all those things, but never really something that I felt ownership over. So Origin, I'm super excited to be a part of it, have these two partners, and make home, claim home in a different way for me.
I love that. I love that. Is it okay to call you a unicorn?
You can
Yeah.
do that. I get called that often.
Because,
I'm like,
meeting
should
an
I change my
Austinite
birth
is like, oh, I'm so sorry. You're also a unicorn? But she's like,
Is he?
I mean,
I'm a unicorn with sparkles.
yeah,
got here when you were
you're
7.
like a part of the unicorn family.
Family,
But
yes.
you have like the
You got
sparkly
here when you were
horn.
7.
Yeah.
You're a unicorn.
I saw
to
we
me,
went
V.
there.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
All right, Miss Dante, tell us where
Hey.
you're hailing from.
So I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. I've been in Austin for 7 years. I lived in New York 6 years prior to moving here. And Austin's been a beautiful place for me to live. I was aiming for Houston initially. I like Houston. I have a network in Houston. I moved to Austin because there was more opportunity here for me, but I didn't know anybody. And so it's been beautiful to create Origin, but it's being created from a very deep need. And I come from I've lived in two very mature cities where the cultural infrastructure was so rich. I never really had to search for community at this level. Whereas moving to Austin, it's like you have to do work to build community. And so I want Origin to make that easier for other people. So, we don't have to repeat the same cycle for everybody that moves here.
I love that. I love that. So I heard a theme in all of your origin stories. It was like, there's a gap in Austin. There are gaps, right? I didn't know if this was my community or I want people to feel at home. Talk to me a little bit about how we got to Origin in general as three partners coming together. Where did this start from? It's a coffee shop. It's a black coffee shop. That's dope. Talk to me.
Yeah, Origin's many things. And I think the take on it is I personally did a lot of work to find community here. I met my first two friends. One was the introduction from a mutual friend in New York. The other, I met her at South by Southwest. I was like, she's going to be my friend. She was friend number 2. And then eventually I joined Austin Area Urban League Young Professionals, and I took a leadership position in that organization. And I would meet a million people that were coming, and it's like, I'm looking for community. And that was like the first thread that I heard. And then the second one was, I'm just here for this job. I'm making good money, but after 1 or 2 years with it, I'm going to move to Dallas or Houston. And so I was frustrated by that because I was like, this is a theme for this population of people. It's a real problem. It's validated. And then a two-sided problem of that was that as we were doing programming with the organization, it was hard for us to find space to do our events, specifically affordable space. And so I just kept kind of flirting with this idea of we need space and we also need to retain these folks. And I went to the Blanton had an exhibit called Making Africa. and Moyo was heavily involved with that. But I went in the room, and it was so many black people. And I mean, we talk about blackness in Austin like we're just happy to see it, but black people are very rich. We're very diverse, even within our subcultures. And it was so many different pockets of black people at the Blanton. And that's when the light bulb went off for me, because I was like, we're here, we just don't have space. And so I started flirting with this idea of a coffee shop, but I was scared of it. It was big. It was like, I don't do, retail. Like, that's crazy. And I told Moyo about it. And he began to harass me every 2 to 3 weeks about status updates. And eventually I looked at him and was like, come join me. So now I get to harass him about it. But no, that we started like kind of sitting with it. And Brittney was working on a project. Brittney and Moyo previously had a project together. They knew of one another. But Brittney was working on another project of a friend of mine. And the friend of mine knew about, what would become Origin. And she said Brittney had mentioned something about wanting to do a coffee shop. And I told that to Moyo. He was like, is it Brittney? And I was like, yeah, that's what she said. It is Brittney, And so I met Brittney and we hit it off. And so ever since then, it's been 3 of us.
That's amazing. Just following that chronological chain. Moyo, talk to me about why you wanted to be a partner. Why be a part of Origin?
Yeah, I got deboed. Stay getting deboed. In some sense, I never wanted to get tied down to like a space, just because it's like truly like having a child, right? In some sense of like you have to put a lot of work and energy into it, and I think a lot of my life is I'm in and out. I think part of what's been important for me is, as much as I'm from here, like being somewhere else also helps, because I get those creative juices and energy and it recharges me. But ultimately, I was like, you're actually really privileged to be able to do that, and this city, and I've tech, art, all these things, and you're like, you should create it. Like, I'm thankful that my immediate family lives here. I have a pretty good network that's here. I was like, you should go and be a part of it. Once again, like fill in the gaps, and so that's what it was. And I realized, even for me in my personal practice, space became very, very important, because I didn't have a studio. And so the second I got a studio and I was able to like spread out and like do work, right, and run the experiment. And so I was like, all right, well, we as a culture, as a people, need a place to run the experiment, enjoy ourselves, and allow the net new to happen, right? And we want Orchard to be a space where you kind of come in with no expectations except just for like, you're going to feel good. And then you meet someone dope. They meet you, they meet us, they meet everyone else involved in this production, whatever it is. And it really truly becomes a point of orientation for people. And I think that's cool. That's extending the canvas of what Austin can be for the future moving forward. And selfishly, I was also just like, I need to solve my own problems as I become an adult and move on through life. It's like, where do I want to like hang out and like be and spend time, right? When I want to like feel recharged and not feel like I have to be something else or in another space or anything like that. And also having a space that's centered around not just my personal world, but like collective world, right? From music. You good there? Dang, man, loud and everything.
She's
just
booked and busy. Sorry.
Flow. Lord, we're trying to be
She's
professional on this show.
My bad.
You know
my
what
bad.
I mean? Getting texts. You just popular like that.
She's on silent.
You know what I mean? Running things.
It's the life of the paid. Sorry.
Not mad at it. Where was I? I forgot.
You was being eloquent.
Creating safe space.
Creating
you
safe
were
space.
there.
Yeah, and I think just like once again, I'll just jump back to like the net new of like what's possible, and I've seen the beauty of that. To your point of like the blend thing, to see the point of something was created. It pulled a lot of people in. People are like, you live here? Where you from? Where you've been? And I think that's what excites me about what we're creating, because we know what we're creating, but at the same time, we don't. And that's the beauty of it. Like all these beautiful surprises that are coming. Add to it.
I think what's dope about that is like with Origin specifically is like we're building something. It's a co-creation with our community. And I think to that end, it's like, yeah, we're like going to shape the thing, but almost release it like a kid, right? And let the community itself kind of inform how it evolves. So just wanted to ride that train of thought.
Yeah, it's Brittney's turn. I just want to know, like, what made you want to be a partner? You rounded out this partnership so in a beautiful way. So what made you want to say, yeah, I'm jumping in with two different people that like sound like I kind of just met, but I know them, but like we ain't really friends like that. Like, how did that work?
I've always been a person that kind of follows breadcrumbs and follows my curiosities, and I mean, I create spaces for a living. That's what I love to do. So when it came to something that was much more personal and less like client facing, Origin really spoke to me in that way, in terms of like a space that my niece and nephews could go to one day, or the younger, generation going to UT, or like that the idea that there would be a space for like the 14-year-old Brittney in Austin, like just I get chills thinking about it. So that's what really called me to like say yes. I didn't know what we still don't know what it's going to look like and who it's going to reach. We have an idea, and we know we have great intentions, and the community is there, but that's what drew me in.
I love that. I love that.
So I think what's dope about is, so Brittney joined, and like things got richer. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like it's cool. Like working with, I admire them so much, and we meet up, and it's vibes. But like Brittney is brilliant in the way that she's like our rudder. Like she's like, directions off. Like go to me and Moyo like energy all day, but Brittney is she really has a purity of both instinct and a purity that she has an excellent taste. I mean, we all do, but I love Brittney being involved, and I'm so glad that like she said something, right? Because she said a thing and it set off a chain reaction, and we just met through this work, right? But it's been amazing to work with her, and I just love like that purity that she brings to the team. She makes sure we're always headed in the right direction, and I love that. Like I think it's so valuable to have.
I love that. And so we were going into your dynamic. I want to know more about your working relationship. Let the people in on how this, because 3 Partners is really cool, right? And so you all have different paths that are influencing your intention, but you have each of your contributions to this partnership. So I want each of you to talk about your partners. You're not going to talk about yourself. You're going to talk about your partners. You're going to tell me what makes this dynamic so amazing about the other 2 people.
Yeah, well, I think all 3 of us are designers, so that helps because we speak a common language. We come from a similar point of reference. Like I mentioned, Brittney is like she's really good at knowing what's right for Origin, what feels right. Even if there aren't words to articulate, she'll be like, that's not the right direction. And I'm like, cool, we gonna wait. We gonna wait till the direction's right.
Trust.
And yeah, definitely there's trust in that. And I love that. We need that. I think you can open a coffee shop, and we've had some early conversations with folks. They're like, oh, it's like Starbucks. And we're like, nah.
No.
And so there's like a texture and a layer that gets added to, and Brittney just has a real like ability to fine tune that and to express that. And I think it's lovely. I think it's a purity thing. And not many of us have that. Like we get tainted by a bunch of stuff. But B's dope. So honored to work with her and learn with her and grow from her, from my interactions with her. And Moyo is like, oh my God. So like Moyo, I knew like he's
pop the collar.
You know, he's just. I learned a lot from the brother. We don't work similar styles at all. If there's friction, it's probably between me and Moyo. Yeah, primarily because of our working styles. Like I'm a planner. I'm like, yo, we got 6 months. The day is coming. 6 months, bro. He like, yeah, He's 6 hours. You know, he's like just in time support, and I'm like, we don't have to do it this way, you know. But I can't. That man's fingerprint on something though. Like I will forever. If he wants me to wait, I will wait. Like it's just when he touches something, I get like a little crack of God, you know, on it. And I'm so honored again. I really love this team, and I love our dynamic together. So yeah, that's my take.
Moyo.
So it's like it feels like I got 2 work wives. I straight up do.
And you do.
Which is beautiful because I think it's like you need that grounding in your life. And I think obviously someone has worked as a creative and is like things are always kind of bouncing left and right. You do need that grounding of like structure and things like that. So this has been a very beautiful expression of just love, even if it comes as friction. But it's really just love because it's like people that really care about you, care about your world and what you want. But more importantly, it's, you know what you can do as an individual, but with 2 heads, with 3 heads, with people, these 2 that have like been around the world, they've been places, their experiences, pockets and spaces, museums, diners, whatever. And I was like, man, I didn't even see it happening like this, but look at it. And it's just so much better than even if I was like, I'm going to do a coffee shop or do a space. Way, way much better. And then it comes with the high level of trust and trusting people that we're all just even growing and just like taking on things that are challenging and growing into that space, right? Like, I feel like Dante adds a lot of structure to this whole jazz. Thank God. Praise him. And her world between like what she's doing professionally and like what that's already even amazing, right? And then like you heard about everything else she's like structured. She has her goals. She tells us about them and the things she's working towards, and she like checks it off. I was like, boss. Dante and I are like brother sister energy. Yeah. That November birth month, we're literally like twins, but like
it's real close. It's real close.
A few years apart. And, and Brittney just be like watching us argue.
Brittney, what's your sign?
I'm an Aries. I'm an Aries Taurus cusp.
Not 3 fire signs in a group.
Fuego.
Are y'all water?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Okay. The more you know.
Y'all the fireest water I've ever met. Okay, continue.
And so Brittney. I just no, but I think I love the fact that she like gives us that structure. Brittney is always our like temperature check, our vibe check. Like, yo, North Star. Like, it's cloudy right now. Let's just like wait till the clouds to move and then go back. So it's really beautiful when you have that fundamentally. And the way the three of us collectively arrive at solutions and arrive at things we want to do, and also just like the synchronicity of it. Like you can't pay for that. Yeah. I can't pay for that. I'm like, yo, life is good. Like there's things are happening in the world, but this part of my world, of my sector of my heart is real good. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. Brittney, talk to me about your work family.
So Dante is on the website. We gave each other these names. So Moyo's the hat, I'm the vibe, and Dante's the strategist. And I really feel like that couldn't be any more like in one word, not totality, but in one word sums up like our strengths. Dante will get you together like
so quick.
Like almost too quick. You're like, oh shit, did I even?
And you don't even know what's happening.
No, you
really.
don't. You're like, wait.
But by the end, you feel very complete. You feel very right.
And confident. I was like, wait, I just sent an email without thinking. What did she instruct me to do? Like, it's a pure, it's a trait that I do not have, and something that I also like am so grateful to be in proximity in this working relationship with her for that, because I've learned so much, even in like our short period of working on Origin. It's a blessing, right? Yeah. Especially with business. Moyo will have ideas, and I'm sitting there thinking, all my head, Dante and I, our head will go like, how? Like, that sounds great, and yes, we love it, and it's brilliant, but how are we getting the jet to go from Italy to Cuba to Austin in 2 hours? Like those sort of ideas, right? But I think that is the partnership, is that we all play to each other's strengths, and we all give each other space to run in the lanes that the strengths that we have. And it's been a total, like, Moyo, like, I feel like I couldn't, this isn't like the job description that you write up. It just, like, things like this, partnerships like this, have to happen organically and naturally, and I couldn't be happier that it did for us.
I love that. And can I just say, watching y'all on this journey is one of the most beautiful things. I'm going to give y'all a shout out, because they already shouted out themselves, so I'm going to give you a shout out. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever witnessed in my young years of life. However, I know something's good. I work with businesses all day, and I know something's good when, like, I'm tingling about it, right? I talk about Origin like it's mine. Have you heard about it?
It is yours. It is yours.
But you see how, like, even though you guys don't know what it's going to be, you're already influencing people to believe, like, that's our space. That's something you can't touch. So we're going to protect that, right? Like, I'm like, did you follow them on Instagram? Yes. Are you on a newsletter? Because you don't want to miss it. I don't even, they like, well, what's coming? I don't know.
But don't miss it.
I don't know. But if you miss it, you're going to be out. And I just want you to be tapped in. That's it, you know? So it's one of the most beautiful things. So I'm so happy y'all came together and decided to do this, because Austin needs it, and we know that. But at the same time, there's so many amazing people here, and they're going to be able to find each other and know I have a safe space. I have people who care about me. I got some good coffee. Yeah. And let's have a good time, right? Whatever that looks like. So I want to talk a little bit about how you guys, what do you want them to take away when they walk into Origin for the first time, they open the door, or I don't know what it looks like, but they hop in. And this is a Brittney question. It is. Let's kick it off there. What do you want them to take away? How should they feel?
I want them to feel like it's a house that they never knew that they needed, like a home that they never knew that they needed or wanted to be a part of or sign the lease on or wasn't worried about the rent. Like, I want them to just step in and feel familiarity. That's the right word, right? And feel us. I think it's going to be very easy for us to like shine and show who we are, what we're about, what we want through the design, but also once we put that in a concept for a restaurant, because it's much more than that. Like we say Origin Studio House, it's a coffee shop concept. Like, we've talked about that. Thank you. But it's much more than that. So I just want people to feel like they're at home and it's a home away from wherever their home is.
I love that. Moyo, Dante, do y'all have something on that?
There's a feeling that I get every time I go to the continent. And, like, you know, you get on a plane, you sit there, whatever, and then you just land, and you're just in a world where everybody just kind of looks like you. But it's not even just that. It's just, like, there's this feeling of, like, wow, you returned back to the source. Yeah. So I want people to feel that they've returned back to something deeper, meaningful, and the beginning of all of things. That's what I want people to feel. And then that allows them to go forth in their day as we go around town and as we work, as life comes to them, in both the spectrum of them having children to them losing family members, because that's what life is. It's the spectrum. And it's like, how can we, in a way, curate people's souls, or provide joy, provide truth, provide experiences, provide more than what they were just expecting on a day-to-day, and orient them to see them, not even just themselves, but the world in something larger. That's what I think we're doing, that we know we're doing. So we might not know exactly what the paint colors are going to be, whatever, but I think that's always something that we're doing no matter what, and just thinking through, like, the everyday journey of the Black experience more specifically. And it's a joy to do that.
I think one of the things that I want to bring to Origin, and that we've talked about quite a bit, is like the sense of discovery. Like, I'm addicted to the feeling of awe, and I feel it in small spaces, like when I walk into Moyo's studio and he's been tinkering and there's like something new for me to interact with. You know, I feel it when I go to museums. I feel it when the plane lands at a new city, you know. And so the idea of like walking into Origin, pulling a book off a shelf, maybe a book you've heard about but you never really touched before, or trying a new coffee recipe, you know, maybe we have like some new stuff there. It's just like that sense of discovery. Like, you know, we gonna put you on to some stuff. You know what I mean? I think you don't travel the world and live in other beautiful, dope places and not bring some of that back. And I think Austin has this dope thing about, you know, keeping things really hyper local and really supporting local. And I think that's beautiful. But I think when it comes to Blackness, like, so much of our references are global. And so I think Origin inherently is gonna feel different because our references are broader than this city in Texas, you know? So discovery is also a core part of what I hope people feel when they walk in.
And talking about like global experience of Blackness, right? Because Austin does love to do a hyper-local situation, and I think that's amazing, especially when we're talking about like farm to table. But just saying, that's, I don't know, I'm just saying. That's amazing. Texas got some great farms, okay? But as a native Texan, I love hearing your stories about where you guys have been and how that impacted you in your life and your growth. And also, Austin attracts a lot of transplants. So, like, our Austin experience isn't necessarily, like, they don't know Texas. They don't want to be local to Texas. They want to feel at home. And so I think it's incredibly important to note that you guys are bringing that to people who might feel out of place, might not know, and they're like, oh my God, I remember that coffee shop in Brooklyn. Okay, I like them. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, oh my God, my grandma used to read this book. I love them. Okay. So like just making sure people feel at home, I think is the biggest thing. And going to experiences, I want to talk about Come Through. Because, you know, there was a very special amount of people. It was a lot of people, don't get me wrong, but I think we got to experience what the first taste of Origin will be, that first vibe, and that was beautiful. That was like the moment. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Come Through. How did that make you feel?
Well, for me, I mean, I felt every emotion. I don't think, if you're doing something for the first time, and I think I love having this conversation because we see people oftentimes in front of a camera after they've done the thing, but to share the process is, I think, where the joy is really at and where the lessons really are. And I think Come Through came about, honestly, because we were at this crossroads of how do we express what Origin is in a way that would drive support for it. And what felt right, is it a dinner where we walk you through a presentation? Brittney was like, hell no, it's not that. And she was like, let's just show them. And I was like, okay. And so we started to build around, this idea of introducing people to Origin. And so prior to that, I think most people had this mindset that Origin was solely about coffee. And Come Through was our way of demonstrating, what is oftentimes hard to put in words. And it's funny because even when you ask people now, like, yo, explain Come Through, they're like, man, you just had to be there, you know?
Honestly, it was a vibe. That's all you can say is like, I had a good time. I had a really good time.
And that's Origin, and so it's like, how do you put that in a deck? And that deck is beautiful. Shout out to Moyo. But like, it's hard to encapsulate. So Come Through is really about, from a strategic standpoint, like really introducing people to what Origin is, and the folks showed up, man, and I was honored. I was honored by that. And I think just from behind the scenes, like, Moyo has a very rich story about the car and whatnot, but I think, just making the event happen was incredibly important for us, and it was incredible to see people come up. And like every ticket that came through, I was like, whoa, shit, like the people are coming, But I think most importantly, we took time out that night to enjoy it as well. And I think, Moyo said this earlier, like Origin is also a space that we want to have for ourselves, right? And something that we wish existed. And so what Come Through, we were able to really enjoy that at the back half of the event, which was fun. Yeah. So
Come Through was incredibly intentional. So Brittney, talk to me a little bit about that layout. Like we had a park area, we had like a picnic area, we had flowers, we had art, we had a whole photo session. Let's start there. So we're gonna get to the poster in a second. But talk to me a little bit about the layout and like the intentionality of Origin.
Yeah, so I think we all were really inspired first by the venue. It was at Distribution Hall on the east side, and yeah, thank you, Austin. That space was just it. In interior design, what I like to do is like you go into the space and then you let the walls speak to you, right? Versus like putting a template onto something that's already built. And so in that space, when we were doing the walkthrough, it was really starting to come to me like, no, this is a block party, family reunion, picnic, like vibes. That's all we could like think about. And so one thing that was also really great about having that be at the crux of the intention for the event is knowing like who we could tap and like, okay, if we're doing a block party, what would Origin's block party look like, right? The weather was great. We had the lawn, the DJ Ose, like we had all those elements. Yep. Quick, boom. But then what other like interactive elements did we want to portray or have people interact with? And so we had games, we had the picnic tables, we had the bar, we had the lawn, we had an awesome photo moment, we had the black women chefs, which is important to us, highlighting them. We had the Flower Note who did florals. So I think it was really like, it was our first event, and to Dante's point, we just wanted to like show what we're capable of, and also like it was just a sliver of what we see Origin being. But it was really like, oh, okay, they've seen us on Instagram, okay, a coffee shop, but let me tell them like what we're like gonna give y'all consistently. And so that was mainly it. You wanna add?
Yeah. I mean, we had people that have been like advising us that were like, whoa. I'm like, we've been talking to y'all for like a year. But that was different for them, right? And these people have their own businesses that are successful as well. And so it was cool just to even demonstrate to them who are seasoned, like what it is, the soul of like, to show our soul and do that. So I've always like loved events in the sense of like it's always the scramble of it. But what I love is all yeah. I love all the ways in which you get to. It's a true. I think it's a true form of expression and love for your community. All the ways in which, I mean, and we've done that and through our past projects and things like that, and I've done it with other people subsequently. So it's just like, I love that. I love that moment, and so that's why it gives me the biggest come through. Gives me one of the strongest insight of what we're creating. Because it's like, if we've done in like a sliver in a micro level, imagine what it looks like when you don't have to reinvent that space every day, right? Like that was a temporary space, but when it's our own home, what's today, what's tomorrow, what's next week, we can plan for that. Our footing in this city is stronger when we do that. We gotta have something, and I'll come back.
Can we talk about this car?
Can we please talk about the car?
So when we talked about the jet idea, Brittney was talking about Moyo has these ideas, like how's the jet going? So he was like, I want to do a photo moment. I want there to be a car. We're going to do like this like floor installation with the car. We were like, all right, bet. Like, you know, Cadillacs, you know, G-Wagons, where we going? You know, I always want the creative vision, you know, just because I'm a bystander of his genius, right? Like I've been a fan of Moyo's. And so, you know, in close proximity, I get to ask him questions now. And so he was like, yeah, I got this lowrider. I'm like, okay, cool. And I think the day before, the lowrider got a flat. And I'm Dante again, so I know the way I'm used to working. And so I'm like, okay, the lowrider has a flat. Like, what's plan B? Moyo don't do discussions. There's no communication about it. There's certainly not a plan B. You know, he's like, I'll figure it out. He walks off. And I look at Brittney and I'm like, so we don't have a car. We got this florals, you know, coming. We just gonna throw the shit on the ground, like, and just stand in front of that. Like, what are we gonna do? So I run to Target because, you know, I'm a woman, and so I'm running to Target, running errands, and Moyo takes a photo of me running to Target and sends it to me. I'm like, you're a stalker, right? And so I'm walking past this like black Benz as I'm like, and it's in the photo as I'm walking back to my car, and then I think the next day he texts and he's like, yo, we got the black Benz, and he sends a picture of it. I was like, bro, that was the one outside Target. He was like, yeah, I met him in a coffee shop. He loved the vision. He said yes. And I'm just like, this is why I surrender with him. Like, I just don't. He has taught me how to attract things. He's taught me how to manifest. Like, I'm like, Moyo, we need to talk to this person. You know, we need to ask about X, Y, and Z. He's like, all right, bet. And I'm like, where's the movement? And he's like, I got it. And it's like, he would like 4 days later, oh yeah, I ran into them and we had a conversation. Like, he will just attract stuff. And it's taught me that, like, you can push, and push energy is great. That's a Western concept. This brother's African. You know what I mean? So it's
this
like,
brother's African. You saw how strong she said that?
It's a different, like, ancestral
I
knowing.
want y'all to understand.
You know, it's a different ancestral knowing, and I don't compete with it. I've learned to respect it because I've seen it at work. And that car was there, and it was beautiful, and the owner was present, and he was like also wonderful to work with, and so it worked out, and people were delighted by that car. Like, nobody expected the car to be there. You know, it was a wandering journey to get to it, and it made all the difference. And I think that's a very strong example of both how we work differently, but also what the trust looks like within a team.
No, the car was a beautiful installation. I feel like everyone, they didn't expect it.
Why was the car important, Moyo?
Yeah, I want to talk about that. Why was the car important? Why was that installation integral to come through?
The surprise element was one thing. And I think part of it is like, I'm a storyteller. We're all storytellers, but like I'm a storyteller, you know? And so I think there was a narrative around, you know, we've all been in the house for a minute. And as I was kind of curating that experience, I was like, well, a car is about movement. It gets you from place to place, right? And then so part of the whole thing was there was this gas can that I've had, just like a retro gas can. And so there was this process where people had to write. It was like a ticket that they had to come up with, and they attached it to the gas can. And it was like I was asking people just a very simple question. It's like, what fueled you in the last year, right? Because I think we've all, once again, lack of community, lack of closeness, friendships, things like that. And we all had to kind of come up with ways to keep moving on, honestly. Healthy habits, hopefully, right, to press through this, like, pandemic that we're still in. And so so that was it. It was about having this beautiful moment that was like, yes, it's stunning, and there's like a photo that's being taken, but also just getting you to tap into something deeper. And I think that's always through like every intention and detail of what Origin is, right? I can imagine when Brittney designs a space, that's what's going to be part of it. It's like there's something deeper. Why are these materials chosen? It wasn't just like so it looks pretty or it's like the cheapest thing, whatever. It's like there's a reason, and I think that's what Origin represents. So that was really fun, and we, the idea was just like, all right, let's take photos or whatever. The poster was like just like a random night in the studio. I was like, I think I could just make these into posters. Right. And sure enough, we did. And that was like a fun experiment. Once again, we're actively playing as a group. And we're actively learning things. Obviously, like, yeah, there's a business component to it. But I think it's cool when it's just like, it comes first out of an expression versus like, we need to make money. Yeah. It's just like, no, this is what just feels good. It was just art that was made. And it was cool to like collage everyone together. And once again, like hopefully when people look at it, they get a sense of like, well, one, there was a lot of people there, but this is community. And I'm like in community with all these people as you see the stacks of people on top of each other. So that's what it is, and will continue to be as we put our imprint and our fingerprint on the next, Origin event and so forth and so on.
I love that. Speaking of, what's coming up next for Origin? What should the people be looking into?
Classified
information? Is it B613? What's happening? Locked down. Follow the Eventbrite.
According to our lawyers.
Sign up for the emails.
Sign to the email, Instagram.
Origin is a very active business for us. Expect to see more product. Expect to have more experiences. Expect to come to our home. Expect us to welcome you home. We're active. We're moving. And we're doing more brand activations, some partnerships, and just really, again, engaging our community in a way that's meaningful and also exposes them to those aspects of Origin that we talked about early, including discovery. So stay tuned. Sign up for our emails.
Instagram, Eventbrite. Stay locked in. As an active bystander, I love that. But I say watching this journey is incredible. And I think the people we're so on the edge of our seat as to what's coming out next. Like, y'all heard from Origin yet? Y'all see what they're doing? Y'all seen the email? Email came through. And I want to say, no, it's real. Like, people are ready to get back into like that connection, because that moment come through was, I'll just describe that for me. Like, come through as soon, it was like walking past a veil, if that makes sense. It was like when we tapped in, we were there. We were doing second line. We were doing the wobble. And I love a good wobble. We was doing the cha-cha slide and all that. And it was like, but once I walked out of the veil to go to the car, I was like, whew, I'm back in Austin. But when I walked, it transcended you, right? Yeah. And so I think that's why it's hard for people to say, like, well, what was it like? Bruh, you gonna have to be there. Because it was like, we all got it. Yeah. And it's interesting to be in a space where everybody gets it. We get what you're trying to do here. Yes. Even if we're surprised, yes. We're like, yeah, this is what we need. And so I think more than anything, for anybody who's on the outskirts of this partnership, is like, we're just anticipating what comes from Origin. And then also, I think it's also a little bit of excitement about like what I'm going to be able to do at Origin. Like, who am I going to be able to meet? Like, what
meet your husband, maybe, if you're into that.
Because listen.
Or wife, if you're into that.
Listen, she's single for all genders.
The door is open.
Okay, the door is open. Taking numbers. But I think also what I can create in Origin, because I'm inspired by a place. I'm inspired by the vibe. I'm inspired by the people. Even if we don't talk to each other, just the fact that like dope ass, nobody not dope is gonna show up. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be dope ass people there, and it's like I'm excited. Mm-hmm. I'm cheesing ear to ear. I already told y'all it's gonna be my day job. Be there 9 to 5. But I think the biggest thing is like, what is Origin going to mean to Austin? If y'all could wrap that into a sentence or a word, what is Origin going to mean to not the people, not all of us, because that's going to continuously grow. Our family's going to get bigger, but to this city and how it's going to change the culture for Black people. Mm-hmm. That's manifestation, because it's going to change the culture. What is it going to mean to the city?
I think hopefully Origin is part of the economic fabric of this city, definitely part of the cultural fabric, an anchor point for Blackness within the city limits. I think a lot of times we get pushed, or our options at least, direct us to parts of the town that's like outside of Travis County. And we were very committed to being in East Austin. And I think that made our journey a little bit longer. It's a part of town that's been historically Black. There's a lot of Black churches in East Austin. You know, here in Texas, Jesus and liquor don't mix. and Origin will have a liquor program. So it's important to us to be able to find a spot that'll allow us to be the fullness of what we want to be and intend to be. And so I think Origin will find its way potentially to be one of the great, anchor points within the Black community here for Austin, and hopefully potentially even trigger other people to start a business, to be our neighbors, and so that's my vision, is that it starts to become a modern contemporary anchor point for Black culture in Austin, for people to see themselves and meet one another, and hopefully, like, again, find a partner, get married, buy a house, and stay. That's my hope. That is part of our mission, honestly, is just to retain the dope people that would love to be here, but don't really see a gateway to that because they don't know where to go on a Friday night to have a good time, safely, and to meet other people like themselves. So I hope Origin becomes permanent and also is just a significant anchor point for this community and this culture, and also just is a signal to other businesses to take the leap and do the same thing.
No, yeah, that was great.
Mic drop? Okay.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
And on that note, this has been Origin Stories. Thanks, y'all.